exploding beepers. In 2024, you really can't make this stuff up. We're diving into a story out of Lebanon today, and it's wild.
Yeah, I saw it.
It's something straight out of a movie, honestly.
Definitely, definitely.
So this article from Gadget Dominicana, it caught my eye, and, well, we got to unpack this together. It claims, get this, that hundreds of Hezbollah members have been injured.
Wow.
By exploding pagers.
Pagers?
Pagers, like the things doctors used to carry.
I know, right? You'd think they'd be using...
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
Okay, so the article mentions a new shipment of these pagers. Specifically, it calls out the Gold Apollo AR-924 model, and that Hezbollah received. It even quotes like an actual Hezbollah official.
Oh, wow.
And they're suggesting malware as a possible cause.
See, now that's where it gets really interesting. You've got this like almost ancient technology, right? Pagers.
Right, ancient.
But then you're talking about modern cyber warfare,
right.
Potentially. I mean, it's that intersection that's just fascinating.
So we're talking about like a Stuxnet situation.
Yeah.
But for beepers.
Potentially. I mean, it's early, but think about it. The implications of malware being able to cause physical damage like that, that's a whole different ballgame.
Okay, before we get too far down that rabbit hole, let's back up a bit. What do we actually know at this point?
Right.
We've got reports of hundreds of Hezbollah operatives injured. Hundreds.
That's a lot of people.
The Lebanese health minister is even quoted saying hospitals are overwhelmed like it's a war zone. It does sound like a scene ripped right out of a movie, but it's a stark reminder. Even in our crazy connected world, this older tech, it can still be a major player.
And that's what makes this so compelling. Why pagers? Out of all things.
Exactly. Like, come on. WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal. You're telling me they haven't heard of encrypted messaging apps?
Well, when you think about the context about how Hezbollah operates, relying on older tech, especially something like pagers.
Yeah.
It's not as crazy as it sounds. These groups, they prioritize security, reliability.
Right. I get that.
Pagers, they often use separate networks. So less susceptible to those big outages, harder to intercept.
Okay, I'm following you. So are you saying someone might have exploited that on purpose?
It's possible, but we have to be careful here. We're working with limited information. Even the article says they don't know for sure what caused the explosions.
Right. No jumping to conclusions yet. But let's say, just for argument's sake, that this wasn't some freak accident.
Okay.
Let's say it was deliberate. We're talking about malware that can make a pager explode, really.
That's where things get a little tricky. Traditional malware, probably not going to make a pager go boom.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. They're pretty basic tech when you get down to it.
Exactly. Not exactly a lot of exploitable components in a pager. But that doesn't mean there aren't other ways this could have happened.
Okay, so walk me through it. If it wasn't malware directly, what else could it be?
Well, one possibility is tampering. Someone gets their hands on these pagers, maybe during manufacturing, maybe somewhere along the supply chain, and they swap out a key component, something that'll cause a malfunction, overheat, maybe even a small explosion.
Like a little bomb disguised as a pager?
Essentially, yeah. It'd be a sophisticated operation for sure. But we are talking about some serious players in the game here.
True. Okay, so that's option one. Tampering. What else?
All right, now this is going to sound even crazier, but bear with me. What if they weren't really pagers at all?
Whoa, now we're talking. Go on.
What if they were designed to look like pagers, but they were something else entirely, purpose-built?
Wow. Okay, that is getting into some real spy thriller territory. But it makes me think, you mentioned miscalculation earlier. Even if this wasn't an attack, even if it's just some weird accident, what happens now? How does this play into everything that's going on between Hezbollah and Israel?
$1 million question, right?
Yeah.
Because Hezbollah's response and how Israel reads this whole thing, that could change everything. Let's game it out a little.
All right, I'm game. Let's do it.
So first scenario, Hezbollah looks at this and says, we were targeted. Doesn't even matter if it turns out to be a malfunction or sabotage down the line. That perception, that feeling of being attacked, that's enough to trigger a response.
So the truth doesn't even really matter, in a way. It's the perception that takes over.
Exactly. And the fact that nobody really knows what happened here, that just adds fuel to the fire. Now, let's say Hezbollah suspects Israel. Even if they can't prove it, That's suspicion alone.
That's justification enough.
Right. And suddenly you've got a powder keg ready to blow.
From a bunch of exploding beepers. It's wild. This could spiral out of control so fast.
It really highlights how delicate the situation is over there, and how even something that seems small, insignificant,
Can have massive ripple effects. It really gets you thinking, you know, about all the tech we use every day. Like, we're always focused on what it can do, how convenient it is. But this really highlights the other side of that coin, the risks.
Absolutely. And it reminds us that these vulnerabilities, they're not always obvious. Like, we might think, oh, that old thing, it's probably fine. But
This case kind of proves that wrong. Big time.
yeah. And the other thing is, we're not just talking about data leaks here or someone reading your emails.
Why?
We're talking about physical consequences, real-world harm from a device that you wouldn't even look twice at.
Exactly. So where do we go from here? What should we be watching for as the story unfolds?
Well, keep an eye out for any official statements from Hezbollah or the Lebanese authorities. If they actually say what caused these explosions, that'll be big.
Okay, so official statements, anything else?
Definitely watch how Israel reacts. Any statements from them, especially if they're accused of being involved, that could escalate things quickly.
It's like we're watching a standoff, waiting for someone to make the first move. Any final thoughts before we wrap up this deep dive?
I think this whole thing, regardless of what really happened, it's a wake-up call. We need to be aware of cybersecurity, not just governments and big companies, but everyday people like you and me. Think about the tech you use, even the stuff you think is outdated and harmless. Could it be vulnerable? It's a question worth asking.
It really is. Well, on that note, we'll leave you with that thought. Thanks for diving in with us. Until next time, stay curious.